Over the course of the last year, Xiaomi has made a somewhat miraculous transformation from just another producer of affordable household electronics and cell phones to one of China's most acclaimed automakers. Their first model, the YU7 sedan, is currently outselling the Tesla Model 3 and every other electric sedan in its segment here in China. And now they're taking aim at the Tesla Model Y with their first SUV, the YU7. I've been inside, outside, and behind the wheel, and boy, do I have thoughts. Before I share with you my impressions of the exterior styling on the YU7, or U7, I'm going to call it both those things in this review, I want to take a minute to show you a clip from my review of the SU7. I think a lot of people outside of China saw this car and almost immediately dismissed it as a knockoff of a Porsche. I hope after watching this video you understand what a uniquely stupid way that is to approach the SU7, because it misses the point entirely. The takeaway needs to be this. In order to compete in the Chinese EV market, the largest and most influential EV market in the world by far, this is the standard you are going to have to meet in terms of range, price, connectivity, and performance. All I can say is, good luck. I still stand behind that statement, but my patience has limits, and Xiaomi is testing them. Wheelsboy's mission here on YouTube is to give people a glimpse of the exciting things that are happening inside of the Chinese car market, and part of that is challenging the outdated notion that China only produces copycat vehicles. And yet here comes Xiaomi, making another model that looks suspiciously like a foreign luxury car, in this case, the Ferrari Purosangue. If Xiaomi were just another obscure Chinese brand producing mediocre products, I wouldn't care. But they're not. They're one of China's most high-profile automakers. Ford CEO Jim Farley is on podcasts talking about how much he enjoyed driving the SU7, and global media are coming from all over the world to drive Xiaomi's cars. The event that I'm on right now is a global launch event. There are media from all over the world who've come to drive the YU7. By producing cars that mimic foreign designs, they're simply giving ammunition to those abroad who already want to dismiss all of China's car industry as IP thieves. I think Xiaomi has very strong products, and they've done a lot to raise the profile of China's car industry, but the way that they're doing it may come at a cost. That's my feelings about the context around this design. As for my feelings about the design itself, I absolutely love it. I think it looks fantastic, and I have to tell you that in person it doesn't look quite as much like a Purosangue as it does in photos. Xiaomi's also proven quite handily with their first model, the SU7, that people are very happy to be able to drive a car that looks like a luxury brand for a fraction of the price. It's also impossible to deny the fact that a great deal of thought went into this design, including when it comes to aerodynamics. This car has a drag coefficient of 0.245, which isn't as low as a Tesla Model Y, but also isn't high in the least. There's also some trick airflow going on. For example, around these McLaren-esque front lights, you can see where the air can enter here and then exit there on the top of the hood. This long hood and relatively low-profile cabin would be familiar in the super SUV segment. We're talking about the Purosangue, the Aston Martin DBX, but when it comes to mid-size electric SUVs, it's positively alien. This thing at nearly 2 meters wide and about 1.6 meters in height looks absolutely sinister when parked next to other more traditionally shaped, well, let's be honest, computer mouse-shaped electric SUVs. This comes with either 19, 20 or 21-inch wheels. Ours has the 21s. But there's a reason most automakers don't design their SUVs in this shape. It compromises interior space. Xiaomi, however, claims that the YU7 has the world's highest volumetric efficiency. What that means in terms of real-world numbers is 678 liters of space behind the second row and up to 1,758 when you lay them down. Those aren't class-leading numbers, but they're not back-of-the-class numbers either. Part of that volumetric efficiency is a well-packaged powertrain. That includes the use of cell-to-body battery structure, wherein the battery is actually a physical part, or rather an integral part of the structure of the vehicle. That means it does have a frunk. You can open this frunk lid in various ways, using the physical key, using the app, or a physical button here on the side. But you can also do it via voice commands. 小爱同学，
在。
打开前备箱。
前备箱开了，注意安全。
Inside is 141 liters of space, considerably larger than the 117 of a Tesla Model Y. It's covered by an equally massive one-piece clamshell hood. As other people have already pointed out, this thing is going to be an absolute nightmare at the factory, because if you install it just a little bit cockeyed, it's going to be very obvious when looking at the outside of the car. Also, replacing that in the event of an accident is not going to be cheap. One piece of good news, however, it has adjustable opening heights, just like a tailgate, so you can worry less about having it run into whatever's overhead. The aforementioned battery pack that's part of the cell-to-body structure comes in two forms. The base rear-wheel drive standard car and the dual-motor Pro model use a 96.3 kilowatt-hour LFP blade battery supplied by BYD. It has a claimed CLTC range of 835 and 770 kilometers, respectively. Max models like this one use a 101.7 kilowatt-hour NMC pack with a claimed CLTC range of 760 kilometers. All of those are class leading. All versions of the YU7 use an 800-volt charging architecture, but those LFP cars, which have a max charging power of 250 kilowatts, they take 21 minutes to charge from 10 to 80%, whereas the NMC cars like this, which have a max charging power of 480 kilowatts, they can do the deed in just 12 minutes. The interior of the SU7 was very nice, but it also looked like something that was designed by Tesla and polished by Porsche. The U7, on the other hand, gives you some genuinely new experiences, while also taking all the things that were great about the SU7 and cranking them up to 11. The first thing you're going to notice, because at 1.1 meters or well over 3 feet in width, it's pretty darn hard to miss, is the Xiaomi HyperVision HUD. That is the wonderful heads-up display that you see at the bottom of the windshield right here. Now, when I first saw videos and pictures of this car, I was sure that they were exaggerating this thing. I thought this basically just looks like what brands like Avatar are doing, a really long screen behind the center one. But this is a true HUD, a screen down here on the dashboard that's being reflected onto this glass panel on the bottom of the windshield. In practice, it's actually quite nice. It's incredibly high clarity, and I really like all the graphics that they've used. It's also very, very customizable. That includes your own little, how should I say, assistant. That assistant can either be an adorable otter or an adorable capybara. When you go through corners, that adorable otter or capybara will actually hold on as if it's swinging with the turn. It is incredibly adorable, and I have a feeling it's going to sell quite a few cars. Another new feature is the glass roof. More specifically, the fact that the glass roof can transition from clear, like this, to almost completely opaque at the touch of a button. However, that transformation starts from the very edges of the glass and takes about 3 minutes to complete. One area where the U7 builds on the SU7's success is in terms of magnetic attachments. So, in the case of the SU7, you had a bunch of areas in which you could attach things like this, a row of physical buttons under the screen, allowing you to have physical controls for your air conditioning as well as your volume and a pause play button. Fantastic. That, however, was relatively limited in the SU7. Here, they've expanded it to include points like this out here. Now, these hex screw mounts were available on the SU7, but on the U7, they're powered. So before, if you wanted to have, say, for example, a charging phone mount, you had to have it right here on the back of the screen. But now you can put it over here to the left of the driver in, frankly, a much more usable place. Each of the ones on the sides of the car is powered. There's also now an attachment area right here where you can do things like this. You can attach this camera. Now, this camera can be controlled via the center screen, and that includes being able to completely spin it around like this. You can also go up and down like so. And you can access this camera remotely via your Xiaomi app. That brings me around to what is probably the coolest and yet most subtle thing that you can do with this interior magnet system. And that's this little button right here. This thing can be placed throughout the interior in various magnetic areas, including up there on the dashboard, here on the rear of the center console, as well as a couple places in the back seat. Now, what you can do with this button is, well, you can do almost anything on the interior. Right now, I have it set up when I hit this, it opens the password protected glove box. Well, obviously there's no password right now, but it could be password protected. It's also absolutely massive, by the way. It apparently can fit 7 14-inch laptops. But really, that's just the beginning of what it can do. If you go into the menu, you can see that there are dozens of different functions that it can control, ranging from the seats to the air conditioning, to the lighting, to the windows, the driver assistance system, the navigation, the media, the phone, the volume. There's absolutely dozens, if not hundreds, of different commands that you can function into this one little button. This is all part of Xiaomi's latest OS, which also includes something that they call the Xiaomi Hyper Task system. So what that means is you can create specific scenarios. So when specific conditions are met, specific things will happen. For example, just randomly, I could say, when someone gets into the driver's seat, I want the system to, let's see, I want it to turn on the cooled seats, or I want it to change the exterior lighting or the interior lighting on the car, or I want it to change the volume. Let's say I want to get in and I want to make sure the volume is at my preferred level. Well, I can change the specific volume level right here in the system. It's really completely ridiculously granular in the things that you can do. It also, of course, can do what we mentioned in the YU7 review, which is it can interact with Xiaomi's home products, for example. So I can set it so that when I reach a specific navigation point, or when I activate the navigation or whatever to go home, it will automatically interact with my home devices. That way it will turn on my Xiaomi air conditioner. So when I arrive, the house will be at the temperature that I want. These smart scenarios are something that other manufacturers have done, but this is a level of, again, granularity, specificity, and an ability to interact with the entire Xiaomi product ecosystem that other manufacturers simply cannot copy. The magnet system also has some very simple attachments. For example, you can get this, which is a tissue holder that goes behind the center screen. You can also get this, a magnetized sunglass holder, which goes down there underneath the center console. I'll be keeping my sunglasses on. It's very bright out today. Further upgrades to the interior compared to the YU7 also include these dual wireless charging pads, which are not 50 or even 60 watts, they're 80 watts, and they've got a very cool hidden vent to make sure your phone stays cool while it's charging wirelessly. There is also an available 25-speaker sound system, and both front row seats are zero gravity. This little button, by the way, isn't drawing power from any of the magnet points or the powered points that are on either side of the left and right of the dashboard. Actually, it has a little watch battery inside and can last apparently up to a year. But a complaint that I have, there are 9 apparently areas where you can mount this button inside of the car. However, they're not clearly marked. So I've spent quite some time trying to find where it is that I can place it here in the back seat, and I can't really find it. Still, pretty nifty. It's also not the only magnetic fun you can have, even here in the back seat. Right here is a modular magnetic rail. This is a powered rail where you can install these kind of little modules. So for example, this right here is an additional light. If I press onto it right here, you can see that it turns on. Press it again, it turns off. But it's more complicated, or maybe more advanced, than just having a light there that you can press on and off. It's connected to the whole car. So if I go up here onto the headliner and hit the cabin light here, the reading light, what just turned on? Well, that light right there. So it's pretty amazing the way that they've integrated this into the car's overall system. In the middle, you have another kind of mount. This one's actually screwed in, whereas you can press and remove this light like so. This one is screwed in for more stability because it's supposed to hold greater weight. Perhaps you could put on maybe a GoPro or another kind of camera onto here if you were a content creator like myself. Above that, though, and perhaps more usefully, honestly, is 2 additional Type-C charging ports. The rear of the YU7 has a 6.6-inch touch screen, but as is the case with so much in this car, it's a little bit more complicated than it first seems because, one, you can change the angle. You can actually take it off. This thing basically appears to be a Xiaomi phone that they've turned into a screen, but there's no camera on the back. Obviously, it's removable, so you can pass it between the rear passengers. The last time I saw something like this, it was on the $200,000+ Hongqi Guoya sedan, one of China's most, if not the most, expensive sedans that you can buy in the Chinese car market. This is allowed to or able to control your air conditioning, your seat functions, which include heating here in the back, as well as your music and other functions, including down here underneath your heated and cooled storage area. Under the right rear passenger seat, there's also a 5.2-liter storage drawer. I've taken the liberty of enjoying a soda water from that refrigerator because it's extremely hot today. I'm going to enjoy it even more by folding down the center console and putting it here in this cup holder. This, by the way, is an area to put your phone, but it is not a wireless phone charger. Space in the second row. Legroom-wise, it is slightly larger than the Tesla Model Y. Headroom-wise, I don't have specific numbers, but it seems in line with vehicles in this class with a nice big glass roof like this. This seat back has adjustable angle all the way up to 135 degrees, which I'm not going to be able to achieve right now because there's a bunch of stuff in the trunk. Xiaomi has yet to announce official pricing for the YU7 as of filming, but I will pin a comment below this video when that pricing is announced. Right now, I'm going to predict something like $34,000 to $43,000. Please feel free to reply to my comment congratulating me for my amazing predictive abilities or telling me just how wrong I was. The standard rear-wheel drive version of the YU7 has a single rear motor making 235 kilowatts and 528 newton-meters of torque. That's enough to sprint to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.9 seconds. The Pro mid-spec version ups the ante with another motor in the front for a total of 365 kilowatts and 690 newton-meters of torque. That will get to 100 kilometers per hour in a much hastier 4.3 seconds. The car that I'm driving today, however, is a Max model, which makes 508 kilowatts and 866 newton-meters of torque, enough to vanquish 100 kilometers per hour in a mere 3.2 seconds. Now, all versions of the YU7 use a double wishbone front suspension and a 5-link rear, but only this Max car has the dual-chamber adjustable stiffness and height air suspension as standard. You can option it, for extra money, of course, on the mid-spec Pro model. It's not available as an option on the standard car. However, CDC, or constant damping control, is standard on all cars. And because people always seem to want to ask me this in the comments section, I will add the fact that the standard ride height for the air suspension is 180 millimeters, but it can go all the way up to 222, but only at speeds under 50 kilometers per hour. I truly mistook the Xiaomi Hypervision HUD as nothing more than something similar to what Avatar or other brands have been using on the interiors of their cars for quite some time, but it's a genuinely different experience. It's a true HUD. Now, the benefit of that is, well, you've got a lot of very useful information in very close area, very easy to get to with your eyes. The downside is that it does make the windshield area feel a little bit smaller, a little bit more like a porthole, but overall, I think it's definitely worth the sacrifice for this user experience. The YU7 comes standard with NVIDIA's Thor driver assistance chip, making 700 TOPS of computing power. That goes towards coordinating a sensing suite that includes a LiDAR unit, tons of cameras, and both short and long-range radar. Now, My time behind the wheel is a little bit limited, so I'm not going to be able to really experience this system, which is capable of both city and highway NOA, so I won't comment on its performance during this test drive event. However, this does offer me the opportunity to talk about a very interesting feature on this car that I've never seen on any other. It's called privacy mode. It's a one-button system or one-touch system in which when you hit the button, it turns off all of the sensing units in the car. We're talking LiDAR units, cameras, radar, and when I say cameras, I mean exterior and interior cameras as well as microphones. That means that when you hit that button, you can feel safe to, I don't know, discuss state secrets, or maybe, do whatever you want to do alone in a car, or with another person, or with 2 other people, or 3 other people. I won't judge. But what separated the YU7 from other Chinese electric sedans wasn't just its smart cabin features or its outright speed, though that was very vigorous. It was the handling. It was the driving experience, which had a level of agility, of lightness that other Chinese electric sedans have never achieved. This car, then, has some very big shoes to fill. Driving this thing on this public mountain road, I'm not able to or willing to try and push it to its absolute limits of performance. This is not the place for that. But it's been an interesting opportunity to experience it in its different driving modes, which, by the way, I really like, because when you switch between them, they display the power that's available in each specific mode. So obviously the lowest power level is available in the eco mode, all the way up to the full 690 horsepower, 508 kilowatts of the Sport Plus mode. To put this car in its proper context, I have to talk about its competition, which is the Tesla Model Y. The thing that's special about the Model Y is the fact that despite it being an electric SUV, it actually feels and drives more like a sedan as I pass a Tesla Model Y here on the road. That means that you have a greater amount of confidence when it comes to pushing it through corners like this. This car does indeed drive like a lifted YU7. It does have that same sense of lightness on the front end and agility. The steering as well is much better than almost every, I'm going to go ahead and say every Chinese electric SUV that I've ever used. So the steering is accurate. The feedback is, relatively speaking, for an electric SUV, quite plentiful. It doesn't feel quite as planted as the Tesla Model Y, especially the higher performance versions of it. It has a lighter steering, a lighter feeling to the front end, but that is actually a good thing. One of the things that people often complain about here in China is the fact that Tesla Model Y, Tesla Model 3, the steering, regardless of driving mode, is very heavy, whereas the difference between the driving modes in this car, Eco, Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, are very noticeable. That includes when it comes to the suspension. The air suspension in this particular Max model is very good. I'm seeing a lot of very good body control in these corners with not a great deal of body roll. I'm also noticing a pretty good control forward and aft. We're talking about brake, dive, and acceleration. This thing looks like a wagon more than an SUV, and thankfully, it actually drives more like a wagon too. I'm really, really relieved by that, because if this thing didn't drive as well as it looked, I'd have been pretty disappointed. Another thing that set the YU7 apart from other Chinese electric sedans was the sensitivity of its accelerator pedal. Basically, Xiaomi was willing to say, hey, we're going to give you an accelerator pedal that if you're not using it properly is going to make everyone in the car extremely uncomfortable. But if you are in a performance driving situation and you want a quick response, you're going to get it. Playing this thing feels like playing an instrument. There's an instantaneous rush of power. But if you're just driving through city streets and your focus is on keeping everyone in the car comfortable, then you can use motion sickness relief mode. This is a driving mode that I've never seen before in another car. What it does is it adjusts the regen and the accelerator pedal so that they're both very, very gentle, thereby keeping you from going through the experience that so many people have while riding in EVs, the coming up to a stoplight, doing this, getting away from a stoplight, doing that. It makes it a much more comfortable experience. I have a feeling a lot of people would appreciate seeing that in more and more EVs. I'm not going to bother referring to the YU7 as a Model Y killer. If that overused phrase were accurate, then well, the Model Y would have been dead many, many times over, and yet it remains the best-selling mid-size electric SUV here in the Chinese car market. I will, however, insist that just as the SU7 set a new bar when it came to electric sedans, the YU7 is doing the same when it comes to electric SUVs. And that's a bar that automakers, both foreign and domestic, are going to have a hard time getting over.